Hey everyone, welcome to those people who are here in the room and also to all our colleagues online. Thanks very much for joining us. It's great to be here and it's great to be talking to everybody. My name is Professor Mick Grierson and I am Professor and Research Leader at the University of the Arts Creative Computing Institute. I'm a Professor of Computer Science and I've been working in the discipline of creative computing for, well, I guess my whole career. But as a professional academic within computer science for about 16 years. We ran the first BScs in creative computing at Goldsmiths, where we set up and delivered a whole bunch of things, including interdisciplinary degrees, where it was computer science and art, and then computer science and music, and computer science and other disciplines. So interdisciplinary computer science is my thing. I'm particularly excited to work with people from the arts and give them power to use technology without relying on other people. So to promote independence and DIY approaches, but in a professional way. You know, the idea that you need a big tech company to support what you're going to do is something I profoundly disagree with. I also think it's, I think it's bad for business, it's bad for knowledge exchange. The idea that we are somehow have to be subservient to the marketing departments of Apple or Facebook or Microsoft, great though they are as marketing departments, is not something we need to take seriously as academics in universities, especially when you consider that most of the technology they're reselling comes from universities, right? So you're in a university structure. Universities are where innovation really happens. It's where knowledge is really generated. And it's quite hard to keep hold of that. It's quite hard to remember that when you're constantly being barraged by people about the next greatest leap forward. But just to, that's part of what I'm interested in doing. As part of this, for the Accelerate project, that's what I'm here to talk about. What I wanted to do was work with the team to figure out how we can create a platform which, albeit a bit more complicated and a bit more involved than some of the commercially available or kind of business-oriented platforms, would allow people in universities, predominantly artists, to build VR and XR spaces themselves without needing support from anyone else, and without needing programmers, and without needing a big tech company to hold their hand and to host it for them, and then to, for you to have to rely on those companies to ensure, even, any tech company, to ensure that your artwork stays on the internet. You should be able to create whatever you want and then have complete control over it. It's not actually that difficult to do, but our role and our mission has been to try and help people understand how they can do that better, how they can have complete control over their own creative work, and then still own it and deploy it themselves in their own way. So yeah, I've kind of introduced myself as a professor of computer science. I do, I train a lot of developers, but I also train a lot of artists, and I've worked with a lot of artists. And many artists come to work with me, and they've never programmed a computer before in their entire lives. Sorry, should I step back a little bit?
It's fine. I was trying to get the zoom right on you. You're slightly decapitated at the moment.
It's my fault. I'm trying to walk into the room. Yeah. So many people I work with, they've never programmed before in their entire lives. Now, today, nothing that I will ask you to do will require you to program a computer. You might have to, well, if you feel like editing text a little bit to make changes, that's possible, right? And that's the way to look at it. That's the way I'd like you to look at it. It's that notion that if you did want to look under the hood, you could do it. And if you did want to spend some time working out what's actually happening when you create your VR environment, you can do it. And it's that possibility and that capability, so that your world that you've made is actually just right there. It's like maybe it's only 80 lines of very simple code. And the code which I'm going to be using is HTML. There's no JavaScript. There's nothing complicated. It's the same HTML that is now part of the primary school curriculum. So although I know that people have genuinely difficult experiences dealing with text on screen, and I know that can be a challenge, we've done everything that we can to try to support people with that challenge, but also we've tried as hard as possible to make the top level of the code, which, like I say, you don't need to engage with in order to get somewhere. We've tried as hard as we can to make that as simple as humanly possible. So what I'm telling you is there's this interactive platform we built. It uses HTML, more or less nothing else, just HTML. And it allows you to build VR worlds, multi-user VR worlds without really knowing how to program. And you can use it for free. And you don't need anyone else to help you, right? You can do it on your own. And that's what I'm going to demo today. I guess I'm promising quite a lot. So I'm going to talk you through how it works, where it is, how you access it. And then I'm going to, then we're going to split up into groups and we're going to try to use it. Now, obviously, famous last words, the first time you try anything, it's always a bit confusing. But that's why I wanted to be here for everyone who's in the room so I can help you. And if you've got a laptop, that's really helpful. If you've not, you can crowd round anyone who has got one, or you can use mine. And it's a work laptop, so there's nothing important on there, apart from all my work emails. Yeah, I think that's fine. Anyway, yeah, so that's what's going to happen. So I'm going to start by telling you about, so that's the intro, and it's a bit dull, so I'm going to stop. I'm going to have some coffee to wake me up for the next bit. Magic. That's actually perfect. That's absolutely perfect. Great. All right, so you should be able to see the Accelerate platform here. Now, in order to find, okay, so UAL is currently hosting this platform, and the important thing for me to say is that that's not free. So it costs us money to host this platform, and I've made a strategic investment in the back end, and we continue to host it. So it would be possible for someone else to host this. It would cost a bit of money. You need a bit of expertise. And if anyone wanted to do that, we could hold their hand through the process. But, you know, we've done all this with actually quite a limited budget, extremely limited budget, right? It's not like we had loads of cash. This has been done with about 100 person days, okay? Based on stuff that we already know how to do, which is not very much, but it just goes to show what you can do. Having said all of that, we don't advertise it on the internet, because if we did, we would end up with loads and loads of people using it, and then it would be a big expensive bill, and I'd have to pay that bill. So you need to have the links, otherwise you won't be able to find it. Excuse me. So yeah, so what I'm trying to say is that if you Google on the internet and try and find this platform, it's not necessarily going to be that easy, and that's on purpose, because otherwise we'll get a barrage of people trying to use it, and my wallet will get really tight. So I need to stop that from happening, so we're not promoting it massively. However, if you go to Google and you type GitHub UAL Accelerate, actually this is DuckDuckGo, okay, which I don't use Google. I mean, you know, for no political reason, just because I don't. And that will take you to this GitHub repository. And this GitHub repository has links and tutorial PDFs for how to use the platform. And these are roughly in an order. So we have Hello World, using 3D models, using physics, how to do collaboration with more than one person, how to create 3D worlds using Blender and import them into the system, how to deal with errors and, you know, when things go wrong, and a bunch of resources. And so all that stuff is there. You can either download these PDFs, or if you don't mind, you can use the wiki, and all of those tutorials are on the wiki right here. So if you're wanting to use the platform and you've done this workshop and you can't quite remember what you did, you need to just go to the web browser and type UAL GitHub Accelerate. It'll pop up and we can circulate a link to that. And then everything you need to know is just there on the wiki, or you can just download the PDFs straight from there. So I'm going to work from this a little bit, just to explain. Now, just one thing to say is that when we did this, we're not quite at the end of the project. And when we did these PDFs, and when we built the wiki, the platform it didn't have any styling. There's no styling on it at all. So the styling is a bit different, but everything is the same. I appreciate that might be confusing for some people. Give us a few weeks to fix that. We've got like a few hours left to swap out the pictures. That's it. Or if you want to redo the pictures and send them to me, I'd be so grateful. Anyway, so yeah, so I'm going to talk you through this process, and then we're going to do some very simple stuff. But before I do that, I want to do a couple of demos, because now we're at the stage where it's quite easy for me to show you a couple of very simple demos, which look a bit more exciting than the other stuff. So let me just sort that out first. I want to, just give me a second. I just realized that I haven't lined this one up. Give me a sec. I mean, it's in here somewhere. Here we go. What I'm looking for is a particular piece of work by a student that we've just who used this platform as a test. So if you just bear with me while I have a look at that, I just need a few minutes.
You're working late, though.
Mate, I know, I've had no time.
There are no secrets in your search history.
Yeah, there's no secrets here. This is obviously, you know.
No, I meant it was like,
here we go.
2359.
Okay, so this is a platform. It looks a bit jerky, but it's actually very smooth on my machine. But that's because we're going through Google Meet for showing everybody. So this is done by a student who had never programmed before. They had a background in design. They wanted to do something that was in VR, which allowed them to explore data and visualize data from what do you call them? I can't remember which one it is. It's an organization that tracks global climate change data. And they wanted to use that to make an installation, a VR installation, and also a multi-screen projection installation. And they wanted it to be web-based, never programmed before. So I gave them the same, all the platform tools, and said, this is what you got to do. They followed the PDFs, the same ones I'm giving you, and this is what they produced. And I've asked for their permission for me to show it to them, and they said yes. And so they took an existing 2D information display, and then they transformed it to 3D, and they built this VR. So, like I say, it's a bit jerky, but you can see, you can look around the space. It's a little like, you can, if you're wearing a headset, this would happen automatically. And then you focus on the thing you want to look at. This is a link, it's a hyperlink, and then it loads the next scene in. And so this is the next scene. Each one of these at the top, these are links to other scenes, other parts of the site, and the site's completely navigatable in 3D and with a headset. And the idea is that it's showing off data from this global climate change information. So if I move my headset over here, and I click my, I'm doing this as a demo, but if I was in a headset, this would work. If I click on the next one, it should bring it up. Hang on, give me a sec. I might just move myself away from that. Oh yeah, here we go. Sorry, I think my machine is struggling to access the hyperlink, mainly because I'm trying to broadcast it at the same time. Let me just move one more thing. Here we go. Let's try like this. There we go. Okay, sorry, it's going to be, the link's not working, but you see the idea. If I want to, if I'm in a headset, I can just press this. This is the headset environment. So if you notice what I did, there's a little pair of goggles in the bottom right, and that pair of goggles is VR mode. So if you go to this website using an Oculus Quest 2, and you're looking at the site in the Oculus browser, and you click on that little goggle, those pair of goggles, it will say, you get a pop-up that says, do you want to view this in VR? And it will become immersive, and the controllers will work. And you'll be able to see the controllers in front of your hands to use them to touch things. All that stuff happens automatically. And she did all the modeling, imported all of these, did all the data, all the animation, and had never programmed before, and was able to make this VR environment. So, and that was all done using these tutorials. So you can actually do quite significant work. And that's an installation that's currently being evaluated as part of this person's research. And like I say, they're a design practitioner. So this is the platform. If you want to find the platform, you'll notice there are links to the login page here. So if you go to the immersive framework, either look at the PDFs, you have to download them, or go to the wiki. And at the login page, you've got to create an account. If you're not logged in, you can't really do anything, right? Now, the reason for that is we don't want anyone to go in and be able to access your stuff. And we don't keep track of any of your details. It's not linked to your student profile. So it is completely private. We don't know. It's just in your browser, locally cached, and then you have to know. Now, this means that if you lose your password and you don't provide us with a recovery email, then we can't give it back to you because we don't want to know. We don't want to know who you are. Okay, we're not interested in your data. So if you lose it, that's your lookout. If you want us to be able to reset your password, you have to use an email at some point. Or you can just email us with some contact details if you've lost your password. But the password reset process does actually work. And that's the second part of this page. So we can create a new user here, provide an optional email, set the password, create a new user. And that's the first thing you can do. Oh, actually, sorry, if you know your username, you can reset your password from this page as well. Really simple. All right, so I'm already logged in, so I don't need to do anything. But you will need to create an account. And if you don't create an account, you can still do things, but nothing will be saved, right? And it's not worth the hassle. Just get an account so that all your stuff is saved. Right, so I've got a whole bunch of projects. Let's have a look at some of them. This is a real simple one that I just did last night. And you see I've clicked on that project. I went to my projects, it's listed my projects. Now, if I wanted to create a new project, when you log in, you won't see any of this. You won't see any of these projects. You'll just see a white blank space with a little plus. You see that plus on the bottom here? And if you want to make a new project, you'd hit that. Yeah. The ... will give you a list of all your projects. But if you just want to make a new project for the first time, you hit plus. Now I'm going to do that in a bit. We're all going to have a look at it, but I want to show you these demos first. So here what we've got is we have got a VR room. I'm going to hit the VR button, and if I had a headset, this would all work exactly the same way. Hit the VR button, and I'm in. And this is all physically modeled. It has physics. It's all automatic. And there's my room. I've got this space. And the really cool thing is I can invite someone else to this space. So I can take this link, the link which is in the top there, and I can send it to someone else, and they can join me in this space. And when they do that, you can see them, and they can see you. Now, at the moment, we haven't made it so that you can both edit at the same time whilst you're looking at each other, because we need more money for that. But if you want to edit with someone else and you're not looking at each other, there's a way to do that using collaborate mode. The collaborate mode doesn't allow you to see each other's avatars. But once you've built it, you just send the link and join, and then you can just roam around in it once it's built. But when you're in it, you can actually edit it right there and then in place. So I'm going to show you how we do that. I'm going to add something to the scene, a stupid thing to this scene. At the moment, what we've got in here is we've got a really nice model, which I've got from Sketchpad. And I've just downloaded the model in GLB format. Now, GLB format is the format that we use for building virtual worlds online. It's an easy, interchangeable format. It uses a WebGL compatible definition. So it's the one you want to use. There are some other formats that you might want to use. We've decided this is the one we're going to use. That's because it is supported by the WebXR framework, which is the universally acknowledged web-based XR platform format. So that's why we're using it. It's a version of something called GLTF. So GLTF is a GL model with all of the colors and all of the lighting and all of that stuff, but it's not what we call baked, right? When it's baked, that means that the lighting and the textures are all staged inside the model. That means it's been baked. You've baked your cake. Your cake looks like that. So a GLB is a baked GL model. GLTF is an unbaked one. It's like it looks okay as long as you're working in an environment where you're still editing the model. But basically, if you're exporting, you need to bake it first. So we support baked models, GLB. But if you see something that says GLTF, it's the same thing. And that can be a bit confusing. And that will happen, right? So I'm telling you to use a GLB, but I'll be showing you how to use one, and I'll be using this thing called GLTF. It's the same thing, same format. The B is for baked. Right. So, yeah, I can go into VR and move around in this space, but I can also add things. So I can just say, okay, I want to, you see this little plus icon here? This allows me to add stuff. So I can add fog, I can add lights, I can add another model. I'm just going to add a sphere. And it's given me a little pop-up, and I can give it a name. I'm just going to use a randomly assigned name. It's going to put it in this position, 0, 0, 0. Now, there are numbers here, and I appreciate that makes things a bit confusing. But this bit of information I'm about to tell you is never, ever going to change, and it's been true since I was a child. 0, 0, 0 is the middle of your OpenGL world. It's the middle of your world. It's the origin coordinate system. Right? It's just like if you've got a 2D graph, that's 0, 0. If you've got a 3D graph, that's 0, 0, 0. The first 0 is the horizontal axis. The second 0 is the vertical axis. And the third one is the depth axis. Okay? So if you want to move something up, you move the middle number. If you want to move it side to side, you move the first number. If you want to move it forwards and backwards, you move the last number. And that's as complicated as it gets. But that is the most important thing. These are what we call OpenGL coordinates. Actually, it's what we call a 3D vector. It's been the same for thousands of years. Thousands of years. Pythagoras used exactly the same system.
What's the order again? You said like the
It's X, Y, Z. X being horizontal, Y being vertical, Z being depth. And that's the most important thing. Just hang on to that. They are your OpenGL coordinates. And generally speaking, if you're in the middle at 0, 0, 0, and you create a sphere at the same point, you might not see it because you're inside it. And by default, these objects don't reflect inwards, they only reflect out. So it will just look like there's nothing there. So it's a good idea to position things away from the center when you create them. Otherwise, you're going to be standing in a load of them and you won't be able to see anything. You're like, well, I'm making all this stuff, but I can't see anything. Well, that's because everything is at the origin. And by default, most things will get positioned in the origin. So get used to these three numbers. I'm going to say that I want to put it in the air. So 2 meters. So these are actually meters in VR. And I'm going to say maybe minus 1 meter back. No, 2 meters back. I'm going to see where this goes. I'm going to insert it. And then there we go. There it is. So there's my sphere. I've just created a sphere. Now, when I created that, I left a whole bunch of really important stuff out. I'm going to go into VR. I'm going to walk up to it, and you'll see this E appear. And that allows me to grab it. I'm in VR, and I've grabbed this. I'm going to drop it, and it stays where it is. Now, here's where it gets funky. I could have done this already, but I'm going to show you something. You see this little arrow here? Everyone see this arrow top right? I'm going to click that. This is the code for this entire page. And it's live. So if I change this code, it will update the document live. So I'm going to scroll down. I've got something that says sky here, and you'll see that you notice the sky is like a red wireframe. It's because I have set it to work on them. I like wireframe skies. I'm properly 90s. Okay. I saw cyberpunk. I'm not running around in my leather jacket. Okay. Yeah, and you'll see here's a model. It says A entity. So this is just like an href or like an image tag. It's just a standard HTML tag. You know, I don't suppose any of you remember MySpace, but back in the day, everybody used MySpace, and MySpace allowed you to edit your tags. You're not allowed to do that anymore. I mean, I was not a fan of MySpace. I don't know why I'm sticking up for MySpace, but you see what I mean. Like it's not complicated. It's an HTML tag, which means you have an opening tag and a closing tag. I'm going to show you something in a minute, which I hope you're going to go, oh, great. But I'm going to show you the bad news first, which is this is the code. All right. I'm going to make a change to this code. I'm going to look for that sphere that I just created. So I created it with that plus, and it's popped it down here at the bottom of the scene. Right. And that's what happens when you add, when you click add something, it creates the code automatically, and it sticks it at the bottom of the code just before this tag here. So can you see this tag here? It says a scene, and that tag has got a slash before it, and that means it's closing the scene. But in HTML, when you see how this has a tag and then it says a sphere, that means this is the sphere and all the information for the sphere. Here, this says a scene. This is a closing tag. So all the way up here, we opened the scene, and then we put all the things in the scene, and then we close the scene with a slash. That's as complicated as it gets. Now, and you don't even need to worry about it, but I want to make a change, okay? Where it says body, type, static, and like I've said, this is in all the PDFs, right? I'm going to change this to dynamic. Because dynamic is a keyword which is explained in the text. It's explained in all the tutorials, and that's going to do something funky, right? I've just changed it to that. Now I'm going to go back into the VR world. I'm going to grab this sphere. I'm going to pull it over here to this bit of background. I'm going to drop it, and it bounces. So I need to kick it a bit. Yeah. See if I can. It's a bit too. Oh, it's rolling away from me now. There you go. There you go. So now it's gone through this wall, and it's going to fall off the edge. And so am I. Ah! All right. When you fall off the edge, it puts you back where you were. Occasionally, you have to refresh it. But there you go. Oh, yeah. Okay. So what we did was we created. Now we could have done that when we built the scene, right? We could have done that when we built the scene. We could have made it dynamic. Let me show you how. So I go to plus. I go to add sphere. And it says body. Now, body is, if this is a physical, this is actual physics. So what I'm trying to tell you is this has got game physics baked in. And if you make all your, so if you want to throw your objects around, you can. If you want to get your mate in on the world, you can chuck objects to each other and stuff like that, right? It's like a proper game environment. Let me show you another example. So, yeah, in my projects, let me just cancel this. In my projects, I'm going to go to this castle. So this is yet another real simple thing. This is just a GLB model of the castle, which I downloaded on Sketchpad and stuck in there. It is. And I'm going to show you one other very important thing. So here's the code for that. This is all just setup code. You don't need to worry about it. The only thing you need to worry about is what's in this scene. See, this says castle here. I've added a keyword to it, to the entity, which is the castle. And the keyword is floor. And that means this is going to be a floor. Watch what happens when one of these objects is a floor. I'm going to walk up to it. And now it knows it's the floor. So I've built a game. This took 35 seconds to do. I downloaded this scene. I can jump around with my mates and I can, oh, I've made this thing.
Can you show that again, Nick?
Yeah, so here, I'm going to talk you through this process in a moment. I'm just showing you this keyword. The first thing I've shown you is dynamic and static, which is for physics. The second thing I've shown you is floor, which is just a word that you add an attribute to an object that makes it the floor. And that means if you have a model, doesn't matter how big it is, if you give it this floor attribute, you can just, it will know not to let you drop below it. That's it. If you don't do that, then you'll just fall to the floor. So I'm showing you this stuff first because you're going to import a model and you're going to fall through the floor and you're going to be like, why am I falling through the floor? And I'm like, oh, I need to add this floor. Now, we will automate this. It's just that sometimes people don't want their item to be a floor. You might not want your sculpture to also be a floor. You might not want people visiting your sculpture park to stand on top of the objects. You might. So if you guys think we should make that a default, we will. Okay, anyway, I'm going to show you something a bit cooler now, which is this is the R moment I hope you've all been waiting for. I'm going to show you another room, which is again another Sketchfab model that I just downloaded. Here it is. And this one is also a floor. So if I go to the VR world and I walk around, I can stand on all the objects, I can jump around. Now, to be honest, nobody really wants to have to code. Not really. What they want is a nice interface. And you see this thing that says inspect scene. Life's a lot easier if you just press that. When you press inspect scene, you get this interface, which lists all of the tags, all of the objects in your scene. And then you can just pick the one you want. And when you pick the one you want, let's say I want to edit this GLB file here. It gives you all the information on it. So I can go all the way down to body, and it can tell me everything about it. It can say what the friction is, what the mass is, what the restitution is. That's how bouncy it is. Right, so I want to make it bouncier, I can make it bouncier. Bearing in mind that this is a room, I probably don't want it to be that bouncy. I mean, because if I mean, this is the thing, if you have a really bouncy room and you hit a wall, you're going for a bit of a wander. Be like over here. Yeah. Anyway, but you can if you want. You can make impossible physical models. I can also, if I want, I can, this is the floor thing. So because I've written it in, it's now listed here. So I don't need to, the reason that has appeared in the inspector is because I typed the word floor in on the attribute and the inspector has put it there. And I can disable it, and that means I'll fall through the floor. This is the model. It says where the model is stored. I just uploaded it. There it is. That's the source location for the model. And then this says whether it's grabbable or not. So you can say you don't want it to be grabbable if you don't want people to be able to grab onto it. I mean, the thing is, I could be in a VR world and I could grab the entire room and lift it up and let go and it'll stay there. That can be fun, but you might not want to do that. It's up to you. These are the stuff on shadows. You can say, I don't want it to cast shadows. If I do that, notice all the shadows have gone. See that? So it's no longer casting shadows. Now it's casting shadows. And I can say, don't receive any shadows either. Right, so you can decide if you want to have them. The shape function, all that does is it works out where the floor is. And yeah, that's basically that. If I pick the sphere that let me add a sphere. Okay, so what I'm going to do is go back to the scene. I'm going to add a sphere. Same thing I did before. I'm going to say, let's put it in minus, away from me, 2 meters. No, sorry, that will be under the ground. 1 meter up in the air, 2 meters away from the origin. Insert. And where'd it go? Now I've got to find it. Where do I actually put it? I'm not sure it actually matters. Do you know why? Because I can inspect the scene here, and the sphere should be listed here. Actually, I can't see it. Let me try that again. So here's another important piece of IT information. If you do something and it doesn't work, just refresh the page and do it again. Let me just see if that appeared. No, it didn't appear. I'm going to try once more. I think it may well have just been a slight, yeah, so add sphere. Oh yeah, I need to press insert. So we're going to say it's 2 meters up and 1 meter back. I'm going to make it a dynamic sphere. It's going to cast shadows. It's going to be a tomato color. I can make it, I could type blue and it'll be blue. And I'm going to say insert. And then it's there. It's there. I saw it. It's there. And it's already running away. Great. I'm going to try and chase it. It's going to a VR environment. Oh, I can't actually. It's probably fallen off the back already. Yeah, it's gone. That's okay though. It doesn't matter. So as soon as I start the world, everything sort of happens. So I'm going to instead, I'm going to use the inspector. Inspect scene. And this inspects everything. So yeah, there's the sphere. I need to zoom out so I can see the sphere wherever it's gone. I can say where I want the sphere to be. So I'm going to say 0, 0, 0 here. That's the rotation. And here I'm going to say I want it to be 2 in the air. There it is. 1 to the, there you go. So there's my sphere. There is accidentally moving something I didn't want to move. Okay, here we go. All right, so there's the sphere.
Not a mouse, Mick.
I'm all right, actually, it's just here. So I can move this separately. There's my sphere. I can put it wherever I want. I can, let's say I want to change the color of the sphere. I'm going to go inside this room and I'm going to change the color of the sphere. Here we go. So there it is. I want to change the color. So you can see that sphere here has got material. So the material, I can change the alpha for the material. I can change the ambient occlusion. I can change the blend mode. So I can have a additive. So you can see now it's sort of semi-transparent. See that? It's now a semi-transparent sphere. I can also, I'm going to make sure I've selected the sphere, go back to material. I can change the color. I don't want it blue anymore. I want it a different color. I want it like this. So that's my sphere. And I can say I want it to be flat shaded. I want there to be fog on it. All of those things. Let me see.
Occlusion.
Yeah. So what that means is that the light is affected. It doesn't shine through. It's a really stupid jargon, isn't it? Right. So yeah, one of the biggest problems with life is that people love jargon, and you will find that that's an issue. So you have to kind of get used to the jargon a little bit. But it takes a bit of time.
No, with the imported model,
Yeah.
when you made the sphere dynamic,
Oh yeah.
and it just ran straight through the wall,
Yeah.
Is there a way to do to put some sort of collision on the wall or not?
Yeah, the reason why that happened is because that particular wall on that model is only a one-dimensional plane, so it has no other side.
Right.
Whereas it would actually have, if I'd have put it a bit higher, it should have landed and stayed where it was.
Right.
It's just because I just picked that model and when I saw it, I was like, the person who created the model has put a sky outside, so it renders nicely, and that's just a plane, and it's just rolling right through that. So, but yeah, anyway, look, the important thing is I've made these changes. If I then just go back to the scene, it won't remember my changes. So here's the important thing. I want to save my changes, right? This is super important. This is the most important thing about the inspector that I'm going to say. So if you're not listening now and then you ask me this later, I'm going to be super annoyed, right? If you want it to save your changes, you have to click the save icon. See the save icon? So you've made some changes, you've selected some things, you've moved them around in the inspector. You don't click back to scene, click save, and it will save your changes. And now I should have there you go, and there's my ball. And it's now no longer jumping around and it's not rolling about because I've moved it. I can pick it up and I can drop it. Yep, and now it's rolling away because it's not very bouncy. I could make it more bouncy. The bounciness is unfortunately called restitution. Sorry about that. Because obviously that's a universal word for bounciness, isn't it? There's not another word. I can't think of another word they could have used, like bouncy. We have to use this physics word. Let's call it restitution because that's more physically accurate. Anyway, yeah, so you can see what's going on there. Right, so let's talk you through how you actually get a model in, and then I just want to kind of break out and get into it, because the only way to learn is to do. And what I've been trying to do is tell you the philosophy, tell you the pitfalls, and then just get you ready to start. I'm not interested in talking very much. I mean, I like talking for my own benefit, but it's not very useful for you. What you need to do is do it. And through doing, you will get better. There's no substitution for doing. So I'm going to show you one more thing. I'm going to show you how you add a model. So I'm going to go to my projects. I'm going to click plus. Yeah. And that's created a new project, and it's by me, and it's automatically got this green plane. Now, thing is, you could create your own starter if you wanted. You could make this project into a perfect starter project, and then it will be saved in your account. And then if you want to use that instead of a starter project, you can just copy it, right? Or you can send it to your friends. So you don't have to use our starters. In fact, you can build any materials you like. You don't have to use the templates we provide. It's much better that you create your own starters, your own templates. They're saved automatically, all the work you've done. You can do this thing called forking. Forking is when you say, okay, I want to make another version of something. So you can make a starter, and then you can click the fork button on the interface, and it will give you this new version. So, just give me a moment. So I'm in this situation here. Settings, fork. So if someone sends you a link, it's just a link. They can send it to you on Slack or on Teams or whatever, or Google, and then they click on it and they go to it, but they can't edit it unless you make them a collaborator. Now, that's a load of fun. We haven't got time to talk about it today, but I've introduced it at other Accelerate meetings. But all it means is that you can both edit the same thing at the same time and see each other's edits. It's a lot of fun. It's also good for teachers, because then a teacher can say, oh, this is what you need to do, and show you, even if you're on other sides of the world. And I work with an artist called Afrani, who had never programmed before in his life, but he wants to produce a VR environment. This is true. He was in Kenya, and I acted as a mentor for him, and I taught him remotely how to create his VR installation whilst he was in Kenya on a mobile phone interface using this platform. And he was able to do it, right? And he, again, never programmed before, and he had animated models and all the rest of it, right? And it's, all we did is we collaborated. He made me a collaborator on his project. I logged in. He could see everything I was doing, and he copied me. That's how he learned, right? So this is an education platform. It's an ed tech tool as much as it is anything else.
Can you show how to get to the fork option?
Okay, yeah, it's everything. You see this, show settings, show document settings. That's got all of this stuff. It's all in the PDFs, man. It's in the tutorials, right? If you want to collaborate, you can click collaborate and add the names of people you want to collaborate, usernames only, so you have to know that. Auto render is the bit that, that's when you type, it automatically updates. You can turn that off. That's a good idea if your thing is crashing a lot. Turn that off. Don't play on open. Also, that's good if it's crashing a lot. That means it doesn't immediately render it, so you can edit any code and fix it. Suppress snippet warnings. You may come across when you try and do something, it gives you a massive warning. There's a whole bunch of stuff about that in the documentation, right? And if you don't want to see them, just take that. And then there's, you can make it read-only. This is currently read-only and private. All right, and then you can fork it. You can also flag something. So if someone sends you something and you're concerned about it, and it makes you feel unsafe, you press the flag button. It sends an email to our administrators, and then they disable it, pending investigation. Right. So you can fork any document anyone sends you. You can make your own templates. You can fork those. Anyway, all I'm going to do is I'm going to add a model. To add a model, there's this thing here that says add files to use. So I'm going to add files. So I've just created a new document. It's already a VR document. It's already got physics baked in. It's already got everything that you need. You can already run around on this green box with your mates and do nothing. But we want to add a model. So I've downloaded some models in Sketchfab, and I'm going to choose a file. I'm going to choose, there's a cave here. I don't know if this one's any good. This could go very badly wrong because I've not even looked at this model. Now look at the size of this model. It's 15.9 megabytes. I'm going to show you how I got this. I've got a bad feeling about this. Let me go to Sketchfab. Sketchfab. Okay. So this is Sketchfab. It's a place where you can get free models. You can, some of them are not free though, so you have to kind of mess about to try and find a free model. I think this one might be, no, that's $30. I mean, I'm not doing any of that. I'm all about free. Actually, no, that's not true. I just don't want you to have to pay. But the good news is if you build, you can build your own models in this platform and export them as GLTFs and put them on Sketchfab and actually get other people to pay for them. That's another thing that's worth thinking about. Right. Let's try this one. That's $9.99. So I just went through this trying to find something as an example. Anime class. Sorry, I can't do that. Let's try cozy living room. Oh yeah, here we go. And this one's free, and I can go download 3D model, and then eventually I'll get this pop-up. And this pop-up allows me to download in GLB format. Now this is the important thing. This is far too big for our platform. Can you see what it says here? It says 96 megabytes. It tells you that. That is a big, big, big mistake, right? At the moment, we want all of our models to be under 50 megs. Try to keep them between 10 and 20, 30 megs. Also, if you've got a model and it's 50 megs, there is something wrong with that model. There's no reason for models to be that big. Really, I used to work in the 90s. I worked as a 3D effects artist, and our models were like, if they were that big, they better be a proper planet. You know what I mean? Someone's not doing it right if they're that. If it's that, you know, people say, oh, it's really high res. It's like, why? Anyway, so please don't try and upload a massively high definition model. Just check this. So we're not having this one because it's rubbish. So, but that's basically what we want to do. We want to find a model which is a nicely made, efficient model. Here's a room. Let's see if that's 16. I've already got one that I downloaded, right? So I've downloaded the model, and they're sitting here. Now, the other thing I've done is I've actually renamed them. They're in my downloads. I've got a whole bunch of them here, but I've renamed them because they've got really long names, and sometimes they've got spaces in the names. Two really important rules when using computers. Don't use spaces in names. Try not to use long names. If you're especially, you know, just don't do it because you're just asking for trouble. Every time you use a space in a computer file name, you're asking for trouble. And if you've got a really long name that you can't remember, then you just be like, what's it called? Because you're going to have to type it in, right? And then, so I'm warning you now, make it a nice, snappy name. Just speaking as someone who's trained a lot of developers, just keep it short and sweet. 8 characters.
Has it got to be GLB or can you use those GLTF?
You can't use GLTF. They have to be baked. If you're uploading a model and you want it to look anything like it looked when you made it, you need to bake it because everybody interprets GLTF models differently. That's why they've got to be baked. All right. So I'm going to load one of these. I'm going to see if it works. I'm going to try and get the cave. So what I've done, just to remind you, is I've gone to this add files. I've gone choose files. I'm going to choose the cave scan. I have no idea if this is going to work. I mean, so it's now going to try and upload it. You see the yellow bar. If you don't get a yellow bar, it's not happening. If you can see this yellow bar, that means it's trying. It's trying to get it. Okay. And this one is about 12 megs. Now, if you want, you can upload as many different ones as you like. So if you've got a model and it's really big and you've done it in Gravity Sketch and you really want to put it on here, that's okay. Just split it into different parts and upload them separately and then join them together later, right? It's just otherwise, I know what's going to happen. I'm going to end up paying to host your entire model collection. And I can't yet do that, not without significant investment from the European Commission. Sorry. Yeah. Anyway, I'm currently paying for all that, so I've set a limit. Right, so now what I want to do is I want to add it. So I need to know the name of it. So I'm just going to get the name of it here, and I'm going to copy it because I'm not very good at remembering words. I'm a developer. I'm not very good at dealing with text. The way I remember numbers is by singing them to myself. I'm not going to do that now because it's extremely embarrassing. Okay, so I'm going to go to the plus, and I'm going to choose Add A-frame GLB model. And it's going to say, okay, this is the ID. I can give it any ID I like, but that one is fine. I'm going to say the source. Now, the SRC stands for source. The source is that, the cave scan.glb, and that should be exactly the same as the name which I had here when I uploaded, the underscore cave underscore scan.glb. It has to be exactly the same. It has to be exactly the same. I'm going to give it the name of cave. And it's going to go wrong first time and look weird. Okay, so get ready for it not to work. I'm going to click insert. And then I'm going to see if we've got any action. Where is it? Where the hell does it go? Okay. We just make sure that actually, we have this. There's the asset. There's the scan. I tested this 5 times, as showed last night in the hotel room, and immediately could see it. Let me try, if we go to inspect the scene. It doesn't appear to have, yeah, okay, let's go. Let me just go back to the scene, try again. If that happens, if we go to inspect scene and we can't see it listed, that means that the insert didn't work. So apologies, this normally works, but it depends on the network connection. Let me just check. Do we have the A-frame model? Did we add the... Okay, the asset's not been added. That's okay. I'm going to try again. Yeah, it's not there. Let's try once more. Add GLB model, name, cave, .glb. Let's try again. That's a bit more promising. There you go. And oh, it worked straight away. So there's my cave. And it's not necessarily in the right position. So I'm going to hit escape, basically, I should say this. If you're clicking around in this window, you can't then click anywhere else. Just hit escape, your escape key. Go back to inspect scene. And then we can see, there it is. You see GLB 5274, there it is. I'm going to select it. I could have given it a more interesting name. It's massive. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to try and zoom out and then rotate around and see if I can find it. And it's not quite in the right place. So I'm going to move it up here. There you go. Let's just keep trying. I'm going to move there it is. So there's my cave. It's somewhere like that. Weird. That is weird. Yeah, that's looking all right. Let me see. Yeah, oh, I see. There it is. So I probably need to think carefully and put some. I need to build stuff around this, but you can see that it's sort of loaded it in. What I'm going to do as well is this box which is on the floor. It's not quite what I want, but it's okay for now. Now I've positioned this more or less where I want it. I could position other things, so I could load loads of different models in. I could load some hobbits and like a goblin, and you know, like some bureaucrats being roasted. And then I'm going to click save. Why am I going to click save? Otherwise, it won't write the changes to the document. Also, you see this. If I wanted to export my scene, I could just click that. So if I built a scene with loads of models and I'm in the inspector, if you just click that, it will automatically download the whole scene as a GLTF with all the textures and everything. And you can open it up in Blender sometimes. The Blender import's a bit weird. Oh, Blender import's currently broken. That's the problem. But it works on anything else. You can re-import it back into anything else, like Frame VR or whatever you want. All right, so everything's accessible here. So then we just save it, and hopefully it's in the new position there. And I'm right in the middle of it. I'm in my cave, and I can go to VR world mode, and I'm there. And I'm in the cave. Now you'll notice that it's not acting like a floor. I'm not moving up. So in order to do that, I'm going to add the little keyword. I am going to do this. I'm going to scroll down until I see the thing that says cave. Here it is. This entity is the cave. And I'm going to add the keyword floor. And now I'm falling through the floor because I'm underneath it. I'm spawning underneath it. So I need to also change where I'm spawning so that I'm not underneath. I'll do that in a moment. So, but you can see, let me just go through that process again. Floor. So I went to the end. You see here, this is the entity. This is the entity which has got the cave in it. It's loading the model. These green things are what we call attributes. I want to add a new attribute called floor. That's going to make it a floor. But then in order for me to be able to walk through it, I have to spawn above it or on it. I'm currently spawning. By spawning, I'm appearing in the middle of it. So I'm already halfway, so it's not stopping me. So I'm going to wait for it to do its thing. I'm going to click inspect scene, and I'm going to choose player. And my spawn point is like, you see that, my Y position for my spawn point. Can you see? I'm spawning 2 meters below ground, which is nonsense. So I'm going to make that, I'm going to spawn 0.5 meters above ground, and I'm going to move myself like 2 meters away and somewhere near to the end. Okay. So I've changed my spawn position. I'm going to be, there you go. And I'm going to say, yeah, I'm going to save it, and hopefully I'll now be, oh yeah, that was exciting. I'm now well underneath. Let me try again. It's going to try and load. If you get this weird loading loop, don't worry, we're just going to, there we go. Inspect scene, the player, oh yeah, that's interesting. I didn't expect that. Let me try once more. Let's try one. Let's try, yeah, let's try that. So that's me. See that white thing? That's me. For some reason, it didn't save my position. Let's try once more. I'm falling straight through again. I'm going to do one quick thing. I'm going to change my player position in this code here, just in case it's not updating. See here, this is the player. Here we go. Yeah, that's weird. Rotation. Let's try. Oh yes, it's done it. It's actually done it. VR. It's worked it out. So it does try and work out where to put you, but it sometimes takes a while. There you go. And now I'm in the cave and I can walk there. There you go. Ah, now I've noticed another problem. It's a bit small. I'm a lot bigger than this cave. So I can change the scale of the cave. It's all right. Also, there's a white sky, which is really, really, really horrible. What I'm going to do is I'm going to go to the sky. There's a thing here called sky. I'm just going to grab it. Where's the sky?
Can you search on that?
Well, yeah, you just do. If you do, yeah, I think you can just do this, sky. There you go, search sky. Did you see that? Yeah. So I clicked in the code window. I did Command F, and then you can actually use regular expressions, which no one is ever going to do. Sky, and it's found the sky. There you go. Now I'm going to give this sky a different color. This is a standard HTML color tag, standard, right? It's what we call a web color, and but you can just type the name of a color. So I'm just going to type the color. I'm going to type black, and that's going to make the sky black. There you go. It's still giving me a bit of a hard time over this, but we'll. And then I think we also need to make it bigger. So as soon as it allows me to see the inspector, which will just be in a moment, I'll be able to. Yeah, here we go. There you go. I'm in inspect scene. Oh, sorry. The reason this is happening is because I'm very big. I'm inside a tiny cave, and the physics is freaking out. It's like, you're too big for this cave, so it's kicking me out of the cave, right? So I'm going to make the cave bigger. This cave here, I'm going to go to scale, and I'm going to make it 3 times the size. And now what I have to do is check the position of it as well, because it's now no longer going to be. You know what I could do is I could just get rid of this box as well, or move this box down. All right, let's try that. Save. See if that works. There we go. There you go. That did the trick. See, I was right. So the reason it kept kicking me out is because I'm a really big, like 1.5 meter high entity, and this cave was too small, so I was bouncing up and down against the ceiling and the floor, and it can't do that. It just kicks you out. It's like it's like a ball. You're a ball. You do this, and you end up being kicked out. So all I had to do is, once I realized what was going on, I made it really big. So basically, we downloaded this straight from Sketchfab. We have no idea how big it's going to be, right? And you just have to. These are things you need to know. I had to do this. There's nothing we can do necessarily. We've tried to build in a system that accounts for it, but there's nothing we can do with someone else's models. We're not responsible for someone else's models. It's not our business how big they are. And if they've made them tiny, I think it sounds to me like it's Hobbit sized. Does that make sense? Like a little 1/2 meter high Hobbit would have had no problem sitting inside this cave. Right. Okay, but now it works, and it's exactly for the reason I thought. And I go into the VR world, and I'm inside this cave. You can see this. I've got a cave, and I can walk inside this cave, and this is the beginning of my Dungeons and Dragons adventure, and that's it. And here's the exit. The exit from the cave of your uncle. Okay, that's the demo. All of those things which I've just shown you. I appreciate that you'll be looking at some of that and thinking, I'm not sure I can remember all of that. Now I understand that, which is why we made those PDFs. Almost all of this is in those PDFs. Also, we've recorded this presentation. All of the issues I've faced today, they're the only issues you're going to face, right? So if you can get yourself through this process once or twice, you're golden. Why should I do that? Well, I'll tell you why. Because you now own this document. You can share this document with anyone just by sending them the link. You can also make it private if you never want anyone to see it. You just send them that link and they go there. And when they go there, you can see them. If you want to change how you or they look in the scene, you can also do that. And I think some of you should try this, because when you look at yourself, you just be like, Mick, that looks awful. And we've made the world's worst avatar, but you can edit the avatar. It's just a sphere and a couple of other spheres, like with some googly eyes. That's it. It's just like 3 spheres. You could put anything in there you wanted. You could load in an anime character. Completely fine. Just stick it in the entity where the other objects are. You could have, we made a sphere. If you put that sphere inside the player entity tags, that's your avatar. That's all you got to do. So yeah, you own this, you can send it to whoever you want, and you can see every aspect of the code. And this is the most important thing. That demo I showed you by that student who had never coded before and then used this to make that demo, she's serving that off just a standard GitHub repository. She's just taken all of the code, saved it as an HTML file, taken all of the assets, which are just the models, and put them next to it on GitHub, and just pressed a button, and it's turned it into a website. Right? That's today's digital craft. That's what it is. And you don't need any support. GitHub is actually a really good resource for showing off VR worlds. You don't need anything else. Just upload it to a Git repository, press Git Pages button, and it will turn it into a live website for you. All you got to do is take this code, copy and paste it into an HTML file, upload it to GitHub, which you can do via the interface, add the models, and press the Go button, and you've got a website, right? So yeah, so you own it, it's yours, you can share it with anyone, you can share this link with anyone, they can also fork it and edit it. If you're a teacher, you can use it to set up a template for a project, you can set 5 of them up, set them as a project, and then say, you do this bit, you do that bit, you do that bit. If you're a student and you don't know what to do, you can send a link to your teacher, make them a collaborator, and then they can come in and they can fix it for you whilst you're watching them type. And it's like Google Docs, you can see what they type, see what they do. And that's it, and that's the platform. So yeah.
Sorry.
No, I was about to say, are there any questions?
How do you make a GLTF file?
Okay, so the immersive ecosystem is more than the platform, but Blender is a free 3D model. Sorry, the free 3D modeling package. So you don't have to spend any money to get it. And it's actually really, 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 really good. Speaking as someone who used to work professionally, who has worked professionally as a 3D graphics artist, Blender is fine. It's fine. So if you go to Blender and you're looking at a scene, you can just go File, Export, GLB, and tick the box that says Include all your materials. And then it will just take all of the stuff you've done in Blender and just squirt it out as a model. The only problem is if you do that, it might be like a terabyte. You know, so sorry, just watch out for that. Here's the thing though, if you want to use like a terabyte of files and all that stuff, that's still okay. You just can't do it on this platform. You can get the code, stick it in GitHub, and then your files can be as big as you like because you're hosting. Right. But yeah, basically Blender, dead easy, file export.
But it is a fine art, the baking, and also getting the models right down to, you know, like Mick says, you know, getting down to sort of less than a megabyte to quite a complex model.
Yeah.
You know, I think
50 megabytes is okay.
Yeah, yeah. No, I'm just saying, you know,
Yeah,
a lot.
you could like save as a GLTF. Is it better just to fork it?
You know what you could do? Well, if you want to get it into Frame VR or if you want to show it off somewhere else, if you've built an environment and you've got loads of stuff in it, you can just make it into one big, let's say you've imported 20 models and you want to stick it on Sketchfab and you've made a lovely scene out of bits and bobs you've nicked from other people and you want to sell it, which I wouldn't advise you do. Ever, unless you're really poor. Just click the GLTF button and it will create a GLB for you and you can upload that to Sketchfab. That's it.
So
do you want me to show you?
Yeah, I think that'd be good. And,
So
and also, Mick, if have you used FrameVR? So FrameVR is like a commercial web XR platform, basically. And we've been using that as part of the ecosystem, but that's a commercial tool where this isn't, obviously. And there's an option in that tool to upload environments. So essentially what you're doing here is building an environment that you can upload in the third-party program. And it worked really well when we tested it.
Great. That's great.
And they provide like a blank environment. So you literally just download the GLB.
So all you do is click this button
and then upload the GLB.
See that button there? Just click it. And there it is. And that's the file. Show in Finder. And it is 17 megs. Now, the thing is, if you do that, I've just done that. It's made the GLTF. It's also got the player in it. So you can see there's a white sphere. So you might want to remove players from it, stuff like that, or edit it later. If you try and open that in Blender, Blender's import is currently broken, but I can demonstrate that it works by importing it into another scene on FrameVR scene. Actually, I'll just do it here. Like if I make it a bit easier, I'm just going to do it like this. That's my accelerate GLB. I'm going to create a new document. Oh yeah, my projects plus brand new document. I'm going to load the GLB I just created. There it is. It's going to add it. And then I'm going to use the plus sign, A-frame GLB model, I need to know, actually, I've just forgotten what it's called. It's just called Accelerate GLB. That's what I called it. Ugh. I'm just going to copy it because otherwise they'll be all that embarrassing. Me fussing around trying to work out what to do. I'm going to call it model. That's the source. I'm going to just position it in the middle. I'm going to insert it. There you go. Works straight away. And then I'm going to remove the. I'm going to go to the inspector. I'm going to remove the green standard box. Visible. No. And there it is. It's done. So there it is. If I zoom out, you can see that's the same model, but it's exported from there. And you can see that white box. That's the player. The player actually, when you send a link to someone else and they join you in the same document, you both appear as more complicated avatars, but they still look really ugly. But then you know, make a nice one and stick it in there. I'll show you. The last thing I'll do is I'll show you where the avatar code is because it's in the default scene. If I want to change the avatar in a scene, you see here where it says avatar template. It's just this: head, face, eye, pupil, and it's you can just change this, change the color, change the size, or you can in here. You see it's two spheres. You see you've got a sphere. Inside the sphere is an entity called face. That's got the eyes in it, and that's it. You can put anything you like in here. You can just have a box, or you could load an asset instead. Right, or whatever you want to, would just sit right there.
And if you deleted it,
then you wouldn't see anything.
right?
So that basically,
You'll be able to interact with the scene. You just wouldn't have the player in.
well, you can walk around the scene.
Yeah.
At the moment, when you're with mates in a scene, you can't edit anything because what will happen is you're just going to get really griefy. You finish your art gallery, you invite your friends, they destroy it, you're stuffed. We don't want that to happen. So we don't allow that. Well, in all the tests we did, all that happened was you got grief. I love the idea that we would all collaborate and it'd be fun, but people just use it to grief on each other, unfortunately. But we can do it if you really want to try. You might get a more collaborative. I mean, the collaboration part works just fine for that. It's a bit more tricky, but if anyone can get a link to your thing and move stuff around, at that point, it's like.
Yeah. So collaborate. Basically, you've got people who've got user accounts.
That's right.
So therefore, that gives them accountability.
Yeah, that's right. And we can record everything they do.
Yeah.
Whereas the networked interaction, it's just they can walk around the space and you can see each other.
Yeah.
But we had to turn off the bit that allows them to edit because it was just a chaotic social media nightmare. Yes.
So in that first example you showed us with the climate change information, is each place you go to a separate scene that are then linked between each other, or does it all happen within this one scene?
It's a separate web page. So when you select that link and click it, it loads another page and it uses a tag called a link, which is the same as an href tag, but it's just a link to another page. So anywhere in a VR world can be a link to another page. Just serve another page anywhere on the internet.
And then you go to another world.
Yeah, but it
So
keeps you in the.
design a few and then sort of pop.
And that's the best way to do it because otherwise it takes ages for you to load your scene. And it doesn't, I mean, you just saw me navigate from one world to another. It didn't take that long to load, but you saw there was a moment when it had to load the textures. So you can texture. I didn't show you how to do this, but it's in the documentation. You can put any image as a texture on any object. So in that example, she's got a world which is spinning and there is animated climate change data on the spinning world. And she just uploaded that as a movie and made it the texture. And yeah, so you can do all of that, but you don't want to then have to load that and about another 10 things that someone might not want to look at. So you just make them extra links and make it really obvious how to get there. You can also have portals. So you can set up a link, which is a portal, and just walk straight through it and it'll load the next page. Yes.
Yeah. Are there any cheaper headsets that would be okay, or would you use Oculus Quest?
Oculus Quest 2 is the cheapest headset I know of that is worth using. But frankly, you could just use a phone and Google Cardboard and it will probably be fine. You know, most of this works on an Android phone with Chrome. And if you've got an old Cardboard, it will mostly work. But if you haven't got like a clicker, like some sort of interaction device, then you'd have to build your scene knowing that people couldn't touch anything. But that's okay.
It's not worth buying cheap headset, really. Oculus.
It's only 200 quid, isn't it?
Yeah, I think the Quest 2 is like 200 quid. So I think, it's still a lot of money, but it's for the quality of experience and, ease of experience. But I think one of the questions of this, when Mick says copy the URL, you've got this massive URL. I think that's something that, because obviously in order to experience this in VR, you need to go to the Oculus browser when you're in VR, and then you need to this is one of the problems we found with accessibility, is that you've got to then either typing in passwords or typing in long URLs. It's a real pain.
Yeah, so all you need to do is have a web page with it as a link.
Yeah, so ideally you have a really clean sort of easy go-to web page, isn't it?
So
maybe we need something like that.
Once it's look, that's that's kind of standard IT procedure. Like, you don't need someone with my expertise to set up a page with a bunch of links on.
Yeah.
You can probably get any tech to do that.
Yeah. Even a link tree.
Yeah.
Just set up a link tree with all your. That'll just make it a lot easier when you're. Yeah, because you do have to go through that process of going to the web browser, the browser in Oculus browser. Do you know what I mean? Have you used the Oculus?
It's just an ordinary browser. It's just if you're wearing it, you've got to type using these two plastic controllers, and it's like ideally what you want is for someone to you just need to go to one site once and have a nice snappy URL. But that's kind of like IT service. IT services, there are many things people in IT services can't do, but providing a link to a bunch of other links is something they definitely can do that you don't need me to do, I hope. Like, it's just a list of links. You can even just put those links in a PDF and then side load the PDF on the device for students or whatever. And then they can just go there and then click the links on there and it will work. Because there's only one browser on the Quest, as well as I know, that you should.
Yeah, it's just the Oculus browser.
Yeah. But yeah, I think that I appreciate that it is an issue, but if we make these links really, really readable, then people are just going to find them and do SQL injections into them and all kinds of other stuff. Like, it's a security issue. We need them to be difficult to find. Otherwise, they'll just have evil in them. They'll have the evil of the internet in them.
On the download where it says, where you can.
Oh yeah. Download the whole thing.
Yes. So that
mostly works.
That produces HTML files.
It does. The only problem is that it will. Is there a problem? No, there's not a problem. That does work. Let's try it.
Because theoretically, that also means once you have the files, you can be offline.
Yeah, the problem with that is, there we go. This is I've just downloaded it. It's provided an index HTML, but it hasn't provided the assets. So you'd have to then link the assets. Let's see what happens when I run it. There's a chance this will work. It seems to be trying to load a model. It might, I know why it's not working, and I'll tell you, and this is the answer to your question. The problem is that Chrome are lobbied by media corporations and other content owners not to allow people to download assets to their devices when they're running web pages locally. And what this means is there's a technical reason why. As a result of all of those IP policies, I'm not lying, and there are other reasons that people will tell you, but it's basically because people are worried about things which are about owning their content and relicensing their content. All of these links here, they need to be loaded by another server on the internet so that they can trace where they were loaded from. And so if you've got a local machine and you have to download all of these files, and these are all served from the internet. The internet didn't used to be like that, but someone's made an arbitrary rule in a meeting. And so as a result, you've got to serve it off a server. So not my fault. I did not invent the cross-origin resource policy, and the people who did are worried about dollars. And as a result, it's less accessible. So yeah, you have to, there are good reasons for having a cross-origin resource policy. I just don't know what they are. So that's the problem. You won't be able to, you won't load it remotely because all of these all of these assets that you need, all of these extra bits of code that we're using to make the platform work, we're delivering them from our own site, but the web browser won't let us serve our own code to ourselves unless we're serving it from the website. And I didn't make the rules.
So the download, does that, I mean, is
The
it?
download
Does
allows
it
you,
have any advantage then?
yeah, it means that you don't have to copy and paste the code from the editor together. You can just get it in a file and then dump it straight in a GitHub. If you do that, then once it's served from GitHub, it's all fine. At the moment, the rule is just use it on the Accelerate platform, and when you want to stick it on your own server, just put a day there to your site to sort it out, and just make, and it's exactly the same as deploying any website on any server. It's no different. So, it's a kind of, it's not what I would call cutting edge. It's the same as it's been for the last 30 years. You just have to stick the file on a web server and then point your web browser at that server. So yeah, there's not, I mean, I can't make it any easier than this because of the way that web browsers work and the way the internet is these days. And, that's because of bureaucrats. It's not my fault. It's true. They're just sitting in the middle of people having fun. People having fun, bureaucrats enter the chat. No one's having fun anymore. That's kind of the rule. So yeah, basically just get that code, download it, grab the asset, stick it in a Git, publish.
There's also the downloads option on the interface. The download zip.
Yeah, but that's the one.
That's what we're talking about.
Yeah.
I mean, that download all the code, it means you don't have to copy and paste it from here.
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, I would love to solve all those problems, but I don't sit on the committees.
Those were the good old days.
Oh yeah. Before the endless September. Right. So, any other questions? Or should we have a 5-minute break and then dive in and do this? Because what I want you all to do is find a nice GLB, upload a scene, add some other stuff, invite your friends, run around in it. As an example, I created a VR gallery here, which is a kind of, you can imagine that once you've got this as a target, all you've then got to do is add a bunch of boxes with your textures on, and you've got a sculpture park, right? Woo, yeah, there you go. So something like this. I can show you where I found this model, or I can share this with you. In fact, what I'll do is I'll copy this and stick it in the chat. And I'm not sure what will happen is if we all go to that at the same time. It could be that we're all in the same space, and then the platform goes down. I've never tried it. Let's give it a shot. But basically, that link is that link is all you need, and it will send you to this starting page, which is a gallery page. And so you should be able to add a box, position it, apply a texture to it. You need to, well, you could do that, or if you prefer, and what I think we should actually probably really focus on is importing your own GLB, because if you've built something in Gravity Sketch and you get it in GLB format and it's under 50 megs, then just to get that to load and be on the scene and be able to share that, that's progress. So let's focus on that. But if you want something a bit more advanced, you can use that. Okay. All right. So